Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a very short question today from Sue. Let me find it. Sue says, I'm wondering where psychic tendencies, she says, fit in with what you're sharing in the Little School of Big Change. So I don't know, I might know what psychic means. These are just words. But when I hear your question, Sue, I just think of something that maybe we call intuition. Let's just call it that for a minute. Even intuition is a weird word. I mean, there's so much on that, and we think we know that it's something that we tap into, and some people have more of it, and sometimes we access it, and sometimes we don't. And I guess the way it looks to me is it just is the nature of things. Again, maybe the word intuition doesn't fit with that so much, but it's just a word. But it's like the nature of things is just knowing. It's just unfolding. It's not even knowing. It's almost before knowing. It just is, and it's just wise. It's just being lived and doing what it does. And I talk about that a lot, how we're lived. So it looks like everything just knows. It just is. It's doing whatever it's doing. And then there's a narrator, there's mind, there's thought, brain that likes to come in and try to make sense of everything because that's just what it does. And sometimes it will, I'm kind of just saying this for illustration's sake, but it's almost like the mind will look at what is unfolding and say, oh yeah, I get that. Here's why this is happening, and I made it happen, and I chose that. And that narration goes along with what's naturally unfolding, and everything seems logical, and the world all seems to make sense. And oftentimes, the mind and logic and narrator can't make sense of what's unfolding. And in those times, it often looks like, well, how did I know that? I shouldn't have known that, or how did that happen? And that's what's like this fun mystery that often maybe we call intuition. But, you know, in a bigger sense, it's like life is just lifing. It's just doing what it's doing. It's just operating by this divine intelligence. And whether the narrator can make sense of it and give logical reasons and cite knowledge and all of that is really kind of irrelevant. It's just like the soundtrack. It's not actually really describing anything necessarily, I don't think, or making anything happen. It just kind of is the accompaniment. So that's how in the intuition bit kind of looks to me. Often it feels like we don't have intuition or we don't know what to do. And I think in those cases, there's just a lot of that narrative thought saying, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. And then attention is just placed there. So life is still lifing. Everything is still operating in this incredibly wise, mysterious way. But when our attention is on the narrator saying, I don't get it, you know, then that's our experience. Is psychic, since you asked about that word in particular, is that different from intuition? I don't know, but it feels like maybe there's an association anyway with time in that, you know, like you think of going to a psychic and they're going to tell you your future. So can people, you know, is it consistent with what we're looking at here, like that maybe someone knows the future, that maybe that is some ability we have? Well, that doesn't feel that far-fetched to me either, because time is really just a thought also, meaning there's just what's showing up here right now. There's only right now. There's just what's showing up right now. And if part of that is a story about another time and place and what's going to happen in another time and place, well, that's just the story that's arising right now. So if time is kind of folded into this now experience, and somehow there's a deeper knowing of this now experience, I don't know, you know, it just doesn't, I don't get it. I don't know how it works, but but it just doesn't feel that far-fetched. It makes perfect sense to me on some level that doesn't actually make sense, that it just feels right. I'll say it that way. It just feels right that sure, like there's a knowing of things beyond the narrator, beyond the intellect, and maybe there's a time component that makes that seem even more unlikely. Like, how could we know this thing way over there and this other time and place was going to happen? Well, time and place were just part of the story that was arising. So, I don't know. I believe it. I'll also say, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who claims to be psychic is, and you probably shouldn't go spend all your money on television psychics, or I don't think they have those anymore. But I did that as a kid. I called one of those hotlines, and it was like 6 months of allowance to pay the phone bill, and I don't think it was very accurate. So there's that. But in the bigger picture, yeah, I feel like there's something there that just makes sense. And just because our mind can't make sense of it doesn't mean anything. Our mind can't make sense of much. It just really likes to pretend like it can. So I hope that speaks to your question in some way, Sue. Thank you for sending it. You guys can send your questions to askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com. And I'll see you next Monday. Bye, everyone.